Good evening and welcome to the April 9th, 2025 Planning Board for the Town of Raymond. The Planning Board, I assume, does have a quorum. Jackie, we can start with you for a roll call.
Jackie Sawyer.
Stephen Clark.
Greg Foster.
Ed Kranich.
Kevin Woodbury.
From Zoom, and Robert O'Neill from Zoom. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you're unable to see or hear. I am going to dispense with the rest of our introduction readings since we don't have any agendas this evening. Our agenda items are, we need the approval of the minutes for the February 12th, 2025 meeting. We have a final review of the ordinance amendments, and we'll introduce those individually as we get to the votes, followed by staff communications and updates and adjournment. So we could start off with the approval of the minutes for February 12th, 2025.
I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. All right, the next is our series of proposed ordinance changes that we're going to send to the selectmen. Just as a quick review, over the past months, the planning board has worked out these through a series. We have had a public hearing on each of the amendments that we are going to be addressing this evening. At this point in the review process, there is no altercations that can be made to any of the ordinances, so we're looking at either an upvote or a downvote to send them to the selectmen. And then the final action to the selectmen will be that whether or not we as a board recommend approval, or we do not recommend approval, or we send to the selectmen with no planning board recommendation. Everybody okay with that? All right, our first one then is, what is our first one? It's the administrative changes for reducing the number of hard copies required for submission. Oops. Is any discussion? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'd like to move to forward the ordinance change. What is this called? Extension of approval and permits for the street ordinance to the select board in favor of it passing. I don't know if I'm making sense or not.
The motion is to recommend forward the warrant with recommending for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
From Zoom, Kevin, and I am aye as well. One down. I'm looking for a record tonight, guys. Can we get this done by 7:30?
I think so.
Oh, it's 7:15.
Yeah, we're on track here. All right, next one is, and again, another administrative clarification on the standards for approval of extension permits. Is there any discussion? Is there a recommendation? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the reduction in the number of copies required for submissions.
I second that motion.
Am I on a different one? I'm on
You're back on track now. Greg's motion was for 28, Ed's is for 27. We're good.
We're good? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Kevin is aye, and I am aye as well. Motion passes. Next up is changing the street design standards. It's a clarification on the reviewing authority. Again, administrative in nature. Any discussion? Is there a motion?
This is
I
the,
move to approve the change in the street ordinance reviewing authority to make it the planning board.
Sending to the selectmen recommending approval?
Yes.
okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Give a aye from Zoom. Motion passes. Next up is the appeals procedure. Again, administrative in nature. It's the aligning the appeals notice timeframe with the state statute. Is there, don't have much discussion, any discussion? Is there a motion?
I'm not clear on which one we're at now.
Yeah, same.
We're looking at Article 6.3 .echo.3, the appeals procedure. And I'm working off of Brett's list. He sent out a Word document.
Oh, 7 days instead of 16 days
Mhm.
for response.
Correct.
I make a motion to move it forward.
All right, Jackie, recommending approval to the selectmen?
Yes.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
David is yes, and I am yes as well. Motion passes. Next up is the changes to Article 6.2.bravo.1, the shore and road frontage, clarification of shore frontage and dock design. Is there any discussion?
You said the dock design is underneath this one as well?
Yes.
I know I wasn't here for the discussion and creation of this, this line item, but I really feel like the way that we've structured this ordinance is overstepping our authority. It's kind of overreaching a little bit. I don't necessarily support this one. So that's my discussion point.
Just as a little background, Jackie, this came to us from the Zoning Board of Appeals because they were having difficulty determining the language that was in the ordinances when individuals were filing appeals for docks. So that's what we kind of attempted to do here, is give it more definition as to where and when a dock can be placed. And some of this language, and Brett, correct me if I'm wrong here, but some of this language came out of the state requirements for shore frontage for the placement of a dock. Is that, am I right with that one, Brett?
Yeah, that's correct. It's also worth noting, legal also had their own comments as well, just to make sure that the verbiage was airtight. I think it was a little confusing from the appeals in terms of shore frontage versus road frontage. So that's where these changes for the shore and road frontage piece of it. And then the dock design and the illustration with that, that was also tied in with code enforcement and some of the concerns that they had as well.
Yeah. Well, my thought is that if we're requiring 225 feet of water frontage for a conforming lot, 6 feet, limiting the width of a dock to 6 feet seems like a lot. You know, if you think about, people having typically, maybe a 6-foot span out to a larger pad type of a situation where, kids can jump off, they can climb up a ladder, like you can sit there and enjoy the sun and swim and watch your children swim, 225 feet seems like plenty of space to be able to do that without obstructing somebody else's enjoyment of the their own properties. I could see perhaps if it was a non-conforming lot that had 50 feet or 100 feet of road frontage where, you know, taking up more space would maybe infringe on someone else's enjoyment and use of their land. But I would think for a conforming lot, limiting it to a 6-foot width just feels like more than necessary, in my opinion. But
I think this is the DEP, though, that requires this.
okay.
I think we just have to, we're kind of enforcing it. So we don't really have the power to be less lenient,
Yeah.
more lenient.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in particular too with those, that's more in relation to like the temporary, like the modular docks that people kind of put out. I think the concern from code enforcement, and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the larger concern was people making larger platforms, more of like a gathering space.
Right, like a deck on the water where they have a grill. The purpose of the dock, unfortunately, is to get to the water to your boat. The DEP doesn't want people partying over the water, so to speak, I think is the concern. So a dock is really meant to get to access the water. I mean, I definitely hear your point about enjoying the sunset and stuff like that. And you can have swim floats out there for kids to play on, but I don't think the DEP wants people to start building these structures out into the water.
Is there other towns that have very similar like ordinance?
I haven't looked into it, but I imagine they are. Yeah, it's because
Especially if it's a state
rules.
requirement.
Yeah, and I was just more, again, to what Jackie said about the configuration and, you know, being limited to, but it sounds like it's more of a based on approval when it comes to planning.
Right, they'll come to us
code
with a
enforcement.
design and we'll look at it and we'll, you know, we try and work with people, but, you know, we can't kind of break state rule because somebody wants to have something that doesn't fit.
And 225 is going to be the minimum requirement to even have the dock on your property?
If it's any new lot, but any new lot has to have that frontage anyways.
Any new lot,
Any grandfather
Yep.
legally, you know, existing, non-conforming, can have a dock.
Okay.
Yep.
And again, like Bob had said too, this kind of came from the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's more an attempt to provide some teeth to prevent those appeals from happening.
Gotcha.
Yeah, at this point, we can't change anything anyway, is that correct?
Yeah, we could either give it a
Right,
thumbs up
right.
or
Either
thumbs
thumbs
down.
up?
A recommendation towards select board.
Yes or no,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we can,
Yeah, I would kind of like to have it clarified exactly what DEP's position is, their wording on that. You don't have that easily available.
No, I can try and find it though as we're talking.
I mean, if they give, you know, a dimensional, you know, definition, we don't have a choice, we have to go by it.
Sandy, I think we had already sent this off to DEP for their review.
Yes,
Is
we
that
did,
correct?
Brett. Yes, we did.
And their comment back was that it aligns with state statute.
Their comment was that they were fine with all of our changes for meeting state regs.
Is the 6, well, we can be stricter than the state, so is the 6 feet width that that we now have, is that
is it a maximum?
stricter than the state? Or is that in line with the state?
I'm not sure about that.
Because DEP would come back and say, we're good, the ordinance is good, as long as we don't exceed what DEP wants.
Yeah.
But if we go where 6 foot is a further restriction, we might want to go that far,
I guess that's my question too, is are we restricting it even further than DEP's requirements, but we still fall within their requirements? Because I'm
It's
sure that.
possible. I mean, the 6 foot thing was always in there.
Yeah.
We were just kind of clarifying some layouts.
And I get the 6 foot, you know,
Yep.
you don't need 6 foot to walk down, but as far as Jackie's point is making, you know, a finger or some type of landing area is it really our concern on what they're doing out there?
If it affects water quality,
Then that's different, yeah.
that's the concern.
Yeah. But anything we can do on a boat as far as having a cocktail in the back or having a grill, is that different
I
than
don't know if
having
you
a
can have a
dog?
drink. I don't know if you can have a drink on your boat.
Well, I'm sure you're
They're not driving.
So, but no, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and see what the DEP says, and
Yeah.
I'm open to whatever. I'm not on the water, so
Thank
I
you,
have to
Jason.
protect it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I don't know that we're proposing to limit it to 6 feet, because that's already what's currently in the ordinance. Just going back to like I think in the planning memo, it's the blue text, where it kind of talks about like the limiting it in terms of for the dock design, at least for the platforms, and then also including the ADA turning radii as well.
Yeah, because at least the sketch here shows what's allowed, and then it says prohibited. So there's
Right, yeah, those are prohibited examples of, attempting, like we had said with the code enforcement, preventing those longer sides
Yeah.
in sequence from creating those platforms or those pads, I guess, at the end. But the ordinance currently does limit it to 6 feet currently, so.
Find a index.
So if the current ordinance is 6 feet and we're not changing it to less, it doesn't seem like we should be able to expand it and make it 10 feet or 8 feet, whatever. So I'm kind of leaning towards sending it along with a recommendation for approval. So I'll make that motion that we forward this to the select board with a recommendation for approval of the change. And it's basically just, the only change is the road frontage and shore frontage on complying lots.
And it's not a change, it's a clarification item,
Right,
really more.
Okay, yeah.
Because it technically did exist, but based on some interpretations, that's what triggered the appeals that the zoning board of appeals
So
was
it's
saying.
just a clarification.
Correct.
So we're just on the distance part now, not the width of a dock.
Yeah, I mean, we're not changing that on the width of the dock.
Well, I guess I don't have an issue with the configuration piece, but, if the width is, if the 6 foot width that we have is more restrictive than what the state calls for, then I would prefer to see it be the same as what the state is, at least, to give the option to have a wider deck if somebody wanted.
I don't have an issue with the configuration piece, but
Audio issue, the way back.
It's the fire department. Should be also.
Was it,
Clarification?
so what would you want, we could hold it for further study, but if we change it, I mean, we can't change it now. We've kind of, I think our goal in this thing really was just to clarify what already existed. So we're not changing any of the restrictions that are already in the ordinances with this ordinance. We're simply clarifying it under the docks for, as requested by the zoning board of appeals. So if we want, we can forward that, we can approve this and forward it to the selectmen with approval, recommending approval, and we can then take this again in next year's round and find out if we want to expand the 6 feet, if we can expand the 6 feet, or look at larger designs outside of what our ordinance currently restricts, in which case we would just modify the ordinance next year. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so Ed has made the motion to approve and forward. I don't think anyone has seconded yet.
Second.
Kevin seconds it. Any other discussion? Steve or Jackie, you kind of happy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's clarification, so I think that's what we need to do. If something happens, we can always revisit it, like you said.
Okay. Okay. With no other discussion, then, all of those in favor, sending with a recommendation of approval to the selectmen? All those in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion passes. And our next one up is modifications to Article 12.2, terms defined. This is a clarification of definition of the solar energy systems. Is there any discussion? We're not changing much here, we're just kind of changing verbiage.
Yeah, I'm good with the clarifications the way it's written, so I'd make a motion to forward this on to the select board with a recommendation to approve.
I second that motion.
There is. Motion is seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And Kevin votes yes, and I vote yes via Zoom. And our next one up is, again, administrative changes to Article, Section 3, Section 3 and Section 6, just a clarification of reviewing authority for new construction and subdivisions. Any discussion? Is there a motion one way or the other?
I'll make a motion to move this forward to the select board for approval.
With recommending approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Greg seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Kevin is yes on Zoom, and I am yes on Zoom. Motion passes. Excuse me. And that is the end of our ordinance work for the year.
There's still the addressing ordinance. Do we need to act on that one?
Did we do that one?
No, the fire department's stuff.
Oh, the fire department.
The sizing of the numbers?
Correct.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
I think Wayne and the other fire inspector was online.
Yep. Wayne, do you want to just give a quick 2 sentences on yours?
Certainly. My apologies, I've lost power in the internet here, so I'm doing this from my phone, so hopefully I'm getting through. Yeah, so what we're looking at here is, you know, being an emergency responder and also the fire inspector, the size of the address number for E911 addressing, if you're not right on the road with that address size that we currently have of 3 inches, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to see that. And then the other change was making sure that the ordinance addresses the issue of addresses being visible from 2 directions of approach to a property. You know, for example, like on 2 sides of a mailbox or 2 sides of a sign. And these are things that when we do plans review, you've seen in our memos that we're trying to address those things, and we're just trying to capture that in the ordinance to make it a little bit more universal across the town.
Okay. Any discussion on the board?
Is there a fine for people that don't have the proper numbering? Is there a,
I know there can be a notice of violation. I don't know if there's a fine. I'd have to look into that.
So if someone doesn't change the size of their letters or their numbers and from 3 to 4 inches, then they're not going to be in trouble for being non-compliant.
Section 9 of the ordinance here does talk about penalty for violation. It says, if anybody violates the provisions of the ordinance after written notice of a violation from code enforcement officer, they commit a civil violation punishable by penalty of not less than $50 per day and not more than $500 total.
Okay.
Is this for only new housing, or is it, it's not retroactive to existing, is it?
The only way that we would look at it as retroactive is, for an example, on our business licensing, when we inspect for business licensing, if we can't see the address from the road, that would be a time to try to address that. But to go in and seek out homes throughout Raymond that don't have 4-inch numbers, that's not the intent of this.
Okay. Seems reasonable enough, so I move that we forward this on to the Board of Selectmen and recommend approval.
Second.
Been seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And I vote yes as well. And the motion passes. All right, that now finishes up our ordinance review.
Jennifer Danzig has her hand up.
Jennifer, this is,
On Zoom.
we're not really taking comments on this. It's just a
sorry.
matter of, we're just
Fine.
wrapping up all our ordinance stuff.
Hi, sorry, I had the TV on and the volume, and I'm here now. I missed what you
Okay.
said, though.
Oh, well, this is not we're not taking public comment at this meeting. We're just kind of forwarding all the ordinances that we've already worked on via
No, I
the
understand.
public hearing.
I
Okay.
just had a quick suggestion. You can take it or leave it. With respect to renumbering the fire, that's a really great Eagle project. You might want to coordinate with Troop 800, because I know that there was a kid in Wyndham who did this for the fire department, and he like raised money and he got the numbers, and he actually went and he put the numbers on the house, and that was part of his Eagle Scout project, and hundreds and it just helped people who maybe were older citizens kind of come into compliance to make it easier for the Wyndham Fire Department. So I just wanted to pass that along as a
Okay.
scout mom of 3 Eagles. I've seen that project done before, and it might be a nice idea if the fire department wanted to coordinate with Troop 800 to get everybody in compliance. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jennifer.
You bet.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay. We are to the point of any correspondence?
I just have,
2
I have a
minutes for
request for,
correspondence.
I have a request for the staff. Can we get the information about the dock configuration?
Yeah, I mean, I just looked up all the other towns, it's 6 feet per state law,
Oh, okay.
For just the width?
the width, yeah.
And you can't have like 6 feet going out to a 12 by 12?
That's not what they want,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, as
We have to
long as it's
enforce it.
clear,
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to make a restriction there.
no, I hear you, yeah.
Did anybody
Okay,
watch
any-
TV last night? It looks like we're going to be taking up short-term rentals.
And some type of, not opting into the cannabis program, but maybe something to address smell, spillover, or we'll see when we take a bite at that apple, I guess.
I mean, what'd you say? I missed the first part.
The short-term rental part, that,
Yeah,
yeah, so at the select board, there's a couple, well, there was a citizen's petition that didn't get done properly apparently, so, but they want us to look at the short-term rental aspects of it, and whether, to craft some type of ordinance to register or regulate in some fashion. But until we get the guidance from the select board and exactly how they want us to proceed, but I think just want to give you guys a heads up that that's definitely coming down the pipeline for the planning board.
Okay. And any projects in the works for next meeting?
Nothing came in today, Bob, but Chris, Jason, and I had a conversation based on the information from last night's select board meeting that we shouldn't make a decision yet if we're gonna cancel the meeting or not till we talk with Joe Crocker. Joe wasn't in.
Okay.
So I will be in touch with you about that.
All righty. All right, my clock says 7:30, right on the money here. Does anybody else got anything?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Is there a second?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Who was my second?
Me. Ed.
Steve? Okay, thanks.